Have you ever just wanted to get away from it all and go to Alaska? Well, we're talking to somebody who did today in the hangar.
I used to be a well-respected member of the aviation community, and then I started flying to Cirrus, and that changed.
Oh, that was great until the engine quit.
And all of a sudden I see these explosions and these trees exploding.
I'm walking away a better pilot because of this discussion.
Welcome to In the Hangar. I'm Christy Wong, and today we're here with Josh Flowers. Oh, and Dan too, I guess.
And Dan, so I'm here too. Thanks, Christy. So thanks, Josh, for coming.
Absolutely.
And this is a special one because Josh sold all his belongings and went to Alaska.
Moved to Alaska.
I did.
Moved to Alaska.
I couldn't take the mosquitoes and I moved back.
Yeah, I saw the latest video you posted. Actually, had you with the full.
There's one particular shot that makes me itchy every time I'm editing and I have to splice this shot in there. Is
it from that
I think it's the same one you're talking about. One of my buddies, I hovered the camera around his head and there was probably about 80 or 90 mosquitoes just all over his hood. And yeah,
But he didn't wear it all the times that you did. There was one cut in the plane. Here's Josh all netted up, and he's like, I'm a normal Alaskan guy
I
here.
was smacking all the flies that were in the airplane.
Oh.
Anyway, we got off track here.
It's a great place though.
Yeah.
Everybody should go.
Yeah.
Oh, I definitely would. I'd be the netted up pilot. You know what? New username.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. No, it was an absolutely amazing experience. And I went up there to visit my buddy Chris Palmer from Angle of Attack. He has a YouTube channel and an online ground school. He would actually be a good addition to this conversation, but that's a long way.
I have to get him from
So
Alaska.
that's a long way to fly.
Yeah.
So I went up to Homer and basically lived with him for like 3 weeks. And he knew of a bunch of places we could go fly. He has a 172 on bush tires. And we just had fun and just went places that he thought were cool. Hey, I know of this backcountry strip that has a camping spot right next to it. We can spend the night there and this and that. And we just did that for 3 weeks.
Okay, so how did you get up there? Did you airline?
I airlined.
Okay.
Oh, bummer.
I know. I had checked
Didn't you think at one point, I thought you and I talked and you were going to fly to
The
Alaska.
plan was to fly the 172 up there. And for the same reason that I drove to Fort Worth today, I airlined out to Alaska because the airplane was showing some engine issues. And it caused us to drive to Oshkosh too. It was
That's-
high time engine, starting to show low oil pressure. So we just said, we're done with long trips.
Good reason not to
Yeah.
fly it.
Yeah,
Or two planes. Remember, two is better than one.
yeah, two
That's
is better
right.
than one.
Should have a second
Just add a
plane.
second engine.
Well,
no
we're not
problem.
putting the Lycoming back on it. We're Pratt & Whitney.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
No,
awesome.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
You heard it today, folks.
No, so I airlined up there. That was kind of a bummer because we were putting together all the plans. I was going to pick up a friend on the way up there, stop in Oregon, and then we were going to continue up, across Canada and then the southern part of Alaska and whatnot. But do what you got to do, so I just airlined.
Yeah. So you went up there to visit your friend, and he was like, hey, let's just go explore all these places.
Yep.
So what were some of these places that you got to explore?
There were so many of them that were amazing. And actually, I would say the best part of the trip didn't even have anything to do with flying. I know, it's crazy. But
You watch your mouth.
I know. we went out on his father-in-law's boat on Prince William Sound
Oh, wow.
for 4 days. Little boat, just big enough for us 3 guys. And we just stayed on the boat for 4 days. And we had a couple kayaks with us. We would stop, anchor for the night. The next morning, we'd go kayak up a couple fjords to glaciers, dodging icebergs on the kayaks and stuff. Absolutely incredible experience. So that was probably the highlight of the trip. Some of the flying stuff, it's hard to narrow it down. We went to Seldovia, Alaska, this tiny little village, 1,800-foot dirt strip, and the approach is really crazy. You got to come over the water and dodge the trees, and then you're turning final. You're rolling out on final as you're flaring and touching the ground. So it's a real cool approach.
Was that the one where you had the short field takeoff, kind of a little bit of a problem on?
That was the one before that.
Before that. So on that, let's talk about, just watching your videos, I've learned a ton. I can only imagine that you learned a ton.
I did.
So what are some of the big things that you learned aviation-wise on this trip?
Right. So that trip was this last June. In April, before that, I went out on a couple of different days in R172 solo, and I recorded a couple of them. And I would just beat up the pattern on a grass runway and practice my short and soft field stuff because I knew that I was going to have to exercise this in Alaska. I got to Alaska, and I knew nothing. I was nailing the landings in R172, but I get to Alaska, and when you have rock walls on both sides of you, and you're coming over a river and trying to dodge the pine trees, and it's, you're actually dealing with a really short runway, it's totally different.
Wow.
And I learned I didn't learn anything, leading up to that point. I didn't know anything. And that was kind of an eye-opening moment among many others throughout my aviation experience that, it's showtime when you're in the real deal. When you're in the real environment, that's when you really learn what you know and what you don't. And I learned that my short and soft field technique was awful.
Well, also the plane was significantly different. It was a 172, but normally you see in these dirt fields and gravel fields, you see tail draggers.
Right.
But the plane he had huge monster tires on
Right.
it, but tricycle gear. I was surprised to see that. I had never seen that before.
So this airplane, it had the STC for the bigger nose gear fork and the bigger tires, so they were 850 tires all the way around.
Okay.
I think normally what this STC is 850s on the mains and an 8 on the nose. But this one had 850s, so the nose, it almost sits like a tail dragger.
Yeah, it does.
When it's sitting there on the
When you
ground.
flare, you're really dragging.
You are. The tail is. We never mounted a camera on the tail because
Yeah,
it would have hit.
Yeah.
I mean, it was that close. But the airplane is a 1963 D model 172. It's got the
Wow.
Continental 0300. But it was the last year with the manual flaps, which I loved. That was like the best part of the airplane was the
Why?
manual flaps because it's a control surface. If you think about flaps, when you have electric flaps, you don't really feel what they're doing, right? You just
Right.
put it down to the detent and the motor does the rest. When you have the Johnson bar flaps, you pull a button. You know this.
Oh, I know this.
The Wong
Trust me.
Warrior.
Right.
Yeah.
You can pull it, and as you're pulling it, you have to push the nose down, and you feel the extra angle of attack that you just gave the airplane. That's what I really liked about it, and that was great for short and soft field stuff. But the airplane was underpowered, 145 horsepower.
Wow.
With those big fat draggy tires on it, and don't
And-
use it to get somewhere.
Yeah, and you did some flying like up towards Mount Denali. Did you have to deal with density altitudes with that underpowered engine?
Out of Talkeetna, a little bit we did. And there were other airports where we had to deal with density altitude too. Most of the stuff we were doing was at sea level. And I think Talkeetna is in the range, I'm probably wrong, I think it's in the range of 500 to 700 feet.
Oh, that's nothing.
That's Texas.
It may even be
Yeah.
1,000 or a
Yeah.
little bit more. I don't know, but it's down there.
It's not 5,000 in
No,
the
exactly.
summer. Yeah.
And we did that flight around midnight. So it was still daylight at the time, but it was nice and cool. And especially once we got up over the glaciers and up into the mountains, we were 5,000, 7,000 feet. But we had the cool weather because it was at night.
Yeah.
It wasn't dark, but we didn't have to deal with it on that flight too much.
I would think, I will say, I think my favorite part of your trip was when you flew the seaplanes. I'm only like 60% jealous because I've always wanted to fly seaplanes. Yeah.
Oh, see,
think
I
you're lying.
never wanted to fly seaplanes. I had no desire to fly seaplanes. I watched his episode and thought, I want to fly seaplanes.
See, I've always wanted to fly seaplanes. It's like the best of both worlds. I like boating. I like flying.
It's a flying boat.
There you go.
That's right.
So
And I kind of felt like you did before I did the seaplane lesson. And that's why I kept the video 40 minutes long on YouTube. That's like twice as long as I normally make them. But there was so much stuff that we talked about during the flight
Yeah.
that I just wanted to keep it in
I
there.
didn't know glassy water was a bad thing. I thought it'd be really good to have glassy water.
Right, exactly. And there's like all these little things that you never thought about. Like when you're doing the run-up, hey, what, you going to hold the brakes?
Yes, yeah, I never thought about
You know,
that
like,
too.
so-
and so
so
you're
you-
doing a circle.
Right.
Yeah,
well,
it's like,
and that's how you hold short of the runway. All these little
Yeah.
things that you learn.
Wow, okay.
But I was the same way. I was kind of like, well, seaplane, yeah, meh. I didn't know if I wanted to pursue it, but I said, while I'm here, I'm in Talkeetna. This flight school has been featured on National Geographic, and this is kind of a famous place.
and she was good.
She was great, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it was a very great learning environment that they had there. And the guy that owns the whole place is the DPE you take your check ride with.
Oh,
And
wow.
he is super nice, really down to earth guy, loves flying. And it was a totally new experience. And afterwards, I was like, man, I wish I had a couple more days here so I could just go take the check ride.
well, and what's great is that if you get your commercial seaplane,
Mm-hmm.
then you're automatically a seaplane CFI if you have your CFI because
Exactly.
it's just airplane single engine.
It doesn't specify.
There you go.
Right. So if you get your seaplane, you're good.
Wow.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, what are you going to finish your seaplane here?
I'm going to go back to Alaska and do it.
Well, that was my next question. Is like after spending 3 weeks in Alaska, are you going to sell everything and move up there? I mean, it's so beautiful.
It is very beautiful. I have lots of ties in Texas.
Right.
But that is aviation heaven up there.
It
I mean,
is.
everywhere you turn is just airplanes everywhere. And every little town has its ties to aviation. Every other person you talk to is a pilot.
It's the only way to get around up there.
In a lot of ways, it is the only way to get around. But it was an incredible experience. To finish the seaplane, I'm absolutely going to go back up there because I feel like if I fly a seaplane down here now, I'm going to be like,
I was like, oh, man.
Yeah.
that was, where's the mountain?
Now I remember why I didn't want to do it.
Right, exactly. So I definitely think I'll go back up there to do it. I want to go back up there in the winter, believe it or not. I want to see what it's like.
I agree.
Up there.
I think it'd be awesome.
You've seen Eskimos, right? Because that's basically what I'm
You've
envisioning.
seen white, right?
Yeah.
There's just a lot of the color white everywhere. The snow
And
gets
like
so
no
deep.
sun.
Well,
Everything is night flying.
Oh, that's right.
that's the part that I won't be able to handle for very long.
Yeah, because you're only going
Yeah.
to get in December, you'll have an hour of daylight, maybe?
Well, it depends on where you are in Alaska. If you're above the Arctic Circle,
Right.
yes. And it can get very scarce like that. Down in Homer, I think Chris said in the middle of winter, it's like 6 hours of daylight.
Oh, that's not bad.
Ooh.
Plenty of
5 to
time
6
to
hours.
fly.
with that.
You can go cross country with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But it's really interesting because they have different requirements for the private pilot certificate up there. Like in the summer months, there's no, or I think, period, I could be wrong on this, that you don't have to have nighttime
Okay.
hours because in the summer,
There is no
you're not going to
There's no
get it.
night.
You know, even at 3 o'clock in the morning in Homer, which is pretty far south in Alaska, it's just barely dark enough to need headlights. You know, it's
like civil twilight.
3 o'clock in the morning, exactly. So it was a very different experience. Took my body a while to adjust. I was so messed up, and it's really crazy because you can be out flying all day long, playing around, and it's like time slowed down. You look at your
you're
watch
like,
and you're
"I'm
like,
tired, but
oh
I
my
don't know
God, it's
why."
10 p.m., but the sun is still up there, you know? It's really crazy. Totally different experience.
Sounds like we need to do an In the Hangar group trip up to Alaska.
You know, we should all, we should do like a formation flight from Texas to
We'll get
Alaska.
Brian Turner
You're gonna put your
involved.
flaps out for me?
Yeah.
Drop your gear for me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And we'll tow you or something.
You and I are good. 'cause-
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's exact same
He
speed.
can, yeah, he can go up there.
true.
We'll be,
I'll be in the hot tub waiting for you guys to get there.
please.
Well, I'll be in an airplane. It's better.
There you go. I'm time building, so
Oh, yeah.
yeah. Slow
Well,
is better.
Truly amazing. I've really enjoyed watching your series. I've learned so much in watching this. I learned a lot in your videos, but even more so on the Alaska ones.
I appreciate that. I learned a ton, obviously, while I was there, but now as I'm editing everything and kind of reliving it, I'm learning like 90% more. That I actually have time to slow down. You know how that goes with video editing. You slow down and review
well,
it.
and when you can, in effect, shoot your training,
Exactly.
and then watch it over and over again, you're gonna catch things.
You mentioned that takeoff out of Quartz Creek that didn't
Right.
go as it should have,
Right.
and that was all due to my technique. But after we left there, we kind of talked in the airplane as we were climbing out over the river and snaking through the mountains, and we kind of debriefed what went wrong. I basically just didn't get the nose off fast enough. But to me, it just felt like the nose was off the ground, so I didn't really
Because
believe
that
it.
Big landing
The
gear.
nose wheel is huge.
Was that
So
the first time you were flying that big? That
It
Cessna?
was the second or third time.
So still early on in your flying.
that was
of
the first
plane.
time I had operated it on dirt.
Okay.
I
You didn't
believe.
have a good sight picture yet built
Right.
in.
Or let me put it this way. It was the first time I had operated that airplane where I truly had an obstacle constraint at the end of the runway.
And you didn't use the full.
And I didn't use
runway.
the proper technique. And I didn't use the full runway. You pass the pylons. And
Yeah, because when I was watching the video, I went, "Oh, why did he turn there? I still see."
because that was the technical end of the runway.
Right.
But there's still another 200 feet that I could have gone to get close to the trees.
displace threshold in effect.
But basically, reviewing that footage, I can go to the wing cam, and I looked, and
Mm-hmm.
sure enough, I didn't even get the tire off the ground.
Wow.
But in a normal 172, that attitude, absolutely the nose gear is off the ground. But that nose tire is about that big around, so totally different experience. It's a different world up there.
Yeah, I'd love to go fly up there. I've been to Alaska, but not as a pilot.
Yeah, I've never been to Alaska, even as a non-pilot.
I recommend
so
it.
I'm going to live vicariously through you for a minute.
Okay, that's fine.
Until I can get up there.
That's fine. Part
Awesome.
11 coming Monday.
Well, well, thank you so much for joining us
Absolutely.
today. I really, really appreciate you divulging in the Alaska experiences until
sure.
I can get up there one year. Seriously though, maybe we should form a group trip and go up there and just all get our seaplane ratings.
I think we
Absolutely.
definitely need to do some group trips. We'll go European on it so that we all group together more like they do.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that would be great.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today in the hangar. If you like what you see, subscribe, share, and we'll see you next time in the hangar.